Hello, everyone. My name is Mirna. On behalf of the Mindalia TV team, welcome to Mindalia live streaming, where thousands of people around the world gather daily to see the lectures and interviews organized by Mindalia TV. Today, Angel Ribo, CEO, consultant, TV host, international public speaker, and president of the Wisdom for Kids Foundation, is being joined by our dear co-host, Judy Hoberman. Together, they're going to be talking about gender inclusion and how to make a better world by applying that in the corporate world, among other places, of course. Before starting with them, we want to remind you that Mindalia's mission is to share information that can help raise the level of consciousness around the world, and you can help us by subscribing to our channel, leaving us a positive comment down this video, or sharing it with someone that you know that is going to benefit of the content that we're going to be talking here today. Also, while we are live streaming, like right now, we have the active chat, the screen that you're going to be seeing here on my side or under the video. If you're seeing us from a smartphone, through there you can interact with us, enter your questions. We please ask you to follow the format or question before the actual question you have in relation with the conference that we're going to be having today. Also, we want you to collaborate with Mindalia with your own valuable content. For that, you can go to our website. On the top, you're going to find a link that says Collaborate with Mindalia. That link is going to take you to a form that you can fill out, and our technical team will be getting in contact with you. So you could collaborate with Mindalia in Portuguese through Mindalia Televisao, in English through Mindalia TV English, as you already know, in Spanish through Mindalia Televisión. Visit our different channels, our platforms, our YouTube accounts, Instagram accounts. Follow us. In that way, you help us reach as much people as possible, and you're also updated on the daily content that is being shared. Information as beautiful and as interesting as the one that you're already used to see in Mindalia TV. We're not going to delay this any further. We're going to be leaving you with Angel and with Judy. Guys, welcome to Mindalia live streaming, and the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Mirna. I have to start today saying that if you hear a little bit of sound, in the background, is because I'm in a public place, but I obviously didn't want to miss the opportunity to be with you guys again and to be sharing the floor with the one and only Judy Hoberman.
Oh, thanks, Angel. I'm so excited to be here with you. We always have fun, always. So I'm happy. I'm happy.
Exactly. We always have fun. We always have a high level of energy, and regardless of the sounds, and regardless, and as you know, everything is always perfect. So everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And we typically have someone else with us in the show, but when someone has something that is on their way, we still want to be here, and we still want to share what we learn, because what we learn allows us to actually share it and maybe to inspire others, or maybe others feel themselves in the same boots of the stories that we can tell and we can share with you. Yeah. What do you think?
Absolutely. And sometimes it's just as valuable just to have the two of us having a conversation of things that have gone on, things that have changed, and things that we can bring to everybody, because we too have lots of things going on. It's not just always having a third person with us.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of things happen in our life, and as you know, when it's like, I remember the first time that I bought myself the first car I bought myself was a Honda Civic. I was still in Barcelona at that time, and I remember that when I bought it, suddenly everything was Honda Civics on the streets, obviously. So it's the same as I don't know if you know anybody who has a daughter who's about to deliver a baby. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation, but has that ever happened to you, that you start seeing lots of young ladies pregnant?
Well, we have one coming in 4 weeks. So every time I look around, I'm like, oh, wait. So yeah, so that's my Honda Civic.
Exactly. So that's your Honda Civic. And that's, and I'm just, talking about this or giving this example, because when you start, worrying, or when you start trying to help people with equality and with diversity and with inclusion, obviously you start seeing a lot of stories, and you start seeing the world under a new perspective.
Yeah.
And you start realizing of what people is going through.
Yeah.
And so that happens every day, at every minute, and every conversation, every interaction you have with everybody.
Yeah, and it's interesting because on social media, every other story now is about either diversity and inclusion, or something about men championing women, or women doing this in leadership. And what I'm feeling is that maybe there is going to be a little shift in the needle, just a little bit. I mean, you know, we can't expect things to change overnight, but even if there's conversations, you know, as long as you bring people into the conversation, things will change. And that's what I think is the important part, is getting people in the conversation.
It's like when you really want to get to know something, or when you really want to master something, probably the first thing you should be doing is to teach it. Mm-hmm. So speak about it, teach it, share it with other people, and really start seeing not only your blind spots, if you have any, but also the reaction of others. And what is more enriching than the reactions of, you know, everybody around you when you're trying to teach something that you just started to teach, something that you're trying to master. And we always have been in that position that, oh my God, I'm going to be delivering that for the first time. Oh my God, what's going to happen? Oh my God, you know, they will know more than me. Oh my God, you know, that shaky, you know, few seconds before you started running the entire show, and then, you know, everything just flows. And as everybody knows already, you know, we're very, very champions of equality, and Walking on the Glass Floor is not only one of your amazing books, but also something which is already helping corporations to see gender as an equality as a great asset for their corporation. As you know, and obviously I value a lot, and we value a lot that Wisdom for Kids, the foundation that I'm a co-founder and president, that obviously part of the proceeds of the book also are going for the foundation. And last week, as you know, I was literally in Latin America in an indigenous community in a place where there were a lot of girls. Mm-hmm. And for the first time, actually, I was interviewing girls. I was literally interviewing, you know, little children, and there were girls among them, and there were boys. And then, you know, you talk to their parents, and you realize that all their parents were women. I mean, single family, you know, single parent families. And then you realize again, you know, what are they going through? What's the role of the women in the economy? What's the role of the women as bringing families, raising families? And what's the role of the women as also serving everybody else? So let me share a story with you. Mm-hmm. One of the girls I was interviewing, her name is Andrea. Mm-hmm. You will see her video very soon.
Good.
Yes, very, very soon. I was outside former Mexica civilization pyramid site, mm-hmm. and the girl was there with some friends. Although she lives in Mexico City, she was at that place that's in the mountains, 6 hours away from Mexico City. And I was asking her, hey, have you ever been in a situation in which someone was laughing at you, or you felt it in the school? And I just had given her a book called Grady Gets Glasses from another friend of women, a great women champion, a great, you know, gender equality champion called Didi Ridman, the author of that book. And she said, well, I've never had glasses, but actually take that back. The girl said, I remember when I was really, really young, like 5 or 6 years old. She's now, I think, 9. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I had a surgery, I had something on my eyes, and I had to have a surgery. And for a long time, for many, many weeks, I had to wear some special, you know, bandage and some patches on the eyes. So I had to wear glasses. And suddenly, mm-hmm. for being a popular girl in the school, I became a girl that everybody would laugh at, and I started to be bullied. And she said, and did that happen to you more besides that? No. As soon as the treatment was over, you know, kids stopped, you know, bullying, stopped laughing at me. But the most important thing was that she said that she stood strong, and she was really strong, and she was able to learn how to be strong regardless of what was happening around her. Obviously, bullying is not only a gender thing. And
Right.
there's actually another kid. There was another kid in the interview that was explaining the same story. It was a boy. But, standing strong is very, very important. Courage is very important. Actually, you speak about courage at the Walking on the Glass Floor book. And you definitely make a very important point about courage and how important it is courage for women that are corporations, but also for men that champion women. And I think that without courage, it's impossible to make those changes.
And I agree with you. And the thing that I find is that a lot of times when people talk about leadership qualities, gender is not part of it. Courage is not part of it. And I'm always saying, well, you have to be courageous to be a leader, whether you're male or female, and you have to make decisions that are not always popular, and you have to have difficult conversations, and you have to do things that you may not have done before. So courage is really important. And when you talk about young children and being bullied, let me tell you that there are women that are bullied a lot. I was bullied when I first went into insurance, and my first thought was, well, get out and don't listen to it anymore. But then I thought, well, why won't I fight for myself? Which I did. But it's not always the easiest thing to do. But courage is huge. And even if you show a little bit of courage at a time, it gets to be where people respect the fact that you are able to stand up for yourself and you are willing to persevere. So yeah, courage is a big one. A big one.
Yes, absolutely. And then I went to meet with her parents, and her best friend's parent was actually a lady, and she would make ice cream. So her entire business, she had to sustain the entire family.
Mm-hmm.
And her son actually even had a medical condition. But the most important point is, I asked her, what's the number one challenge that you have had in your life? And she said, fortunately, when I became pregnant of my son, only a few months later, I became single again. So I could only rely on myself to bring my kid. And she was, her business is just to offer it to tourists outside that pyramid side, the Mexica pyramid side, ice cream. And she, and regardless of the challenges, she was there. She was standing there, and she was very strong, and she was making a lot of clients, and they were selling those ice creams I think it was like 3 pesos, which is a seventh of a dollar. So, she had to sell a lot of ice creams to make a living.
Yeah.
And to put that into perspective, you need about, which is it? I think it's only like $25 just for signing a kid up on a school. So you need that amount of money. Then throughout the year, you need probably like $150 more. If you multiply that for times 20 pesos, start making the calculation. Oh my God. So this is a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of money. And I told her, hey, you have an amazing kid. Your son's friend, Andrea, she's a strong woman. You're showing that you're a strong woman. And she said, oh yeah, I know exactly what I have to do with my life. So, I was so impressed. That was a powerful woman.
Yeah. And, sometimes people do what they have to do in order to survive, in order to succeed. And, a lot of people are single parents, both men and women. And so you know what it takes. And a lot of times it's a struggle. But think about, the outcome, and think about the fact that she can talk about she got her kids in school and she's been able to do that. But she's also showing work ethics. And, for Wisdom for Kids, with all of the entrepreneurial skills that you're teaching them, one of them is work ethics. And so when you learn that, when you learn it from home, and not everybody does, but when you learn it from home and then it's reinforced by a group of amazing people that come into your community and show you this is how you become successful, it takes a lot of courage for anybody that wants to do an entrepreneurial venture. You know, you got to be, you know, a risk taker. So it's, yeah.
And reality is also that when families still stay together, very often, at least that's what we've learned at Wisdom for Kids, is that in those areas, obviously, I mean, the family, if they are lucky enough to have like a portion of land, a piece of land,
Mm-hmm.
then it's the entire family who cultivates, you know, who harvests everything. And then, you know, I remember one time when we launched Wisdom for Kids, that people started saying, "Hey, so are you going to teach the kids to be in the labor market, you know, before the age that they are allowed to be in the labor market?"
Mm-hmm.
So that was a very good question. But the reality is that in all those areas, no matter how old you are helping the family. So the reality is that you're helping mom and you're helping dad, and you are with them all the time. With, you know, if there's animals in that piece of land, if there's any sort of, you know, if there's weed, or if there's coffee, or if there's, you know, peppercorn trees, whatever that is, they are, you know, it's a family business. So the thing is, number one, how do we share those work ethics and those values? And actually, we talk about values a lot on our workshops. And then, you know, what made, obviously, most of the time, their parents were or became, you know, businessmen or self-employed because they didn't have a chance. So they have the land, and the land is rich, so they harvest it and they cultivate it and they increase the yield, right? That's the most important thing. But then is how do you take this to the next level? So what makes someone that is already used to live in a place where they have to work? I mean, talking about kids, we're talking about men, women, or kids, or, you know, girls and boys. They have to work, but how do we take them from that? We have to work because it's a family business, and we have to live, and we have to, you know, have to have food on the table. How do we take that from that place into okay, but, you know, I can myself become, you know, an entrepreneur. So it means that I can build the necessary systems to go from a concept of, you know, working for myself into I am a business person, and eventually, you know, I am even an investor. And those are the kind of terms that we share with them. But obviously they need to understand, and we talk about the 4 quadrants of you know, that Robert Kiyosaki you know, talks about in his book. So employee, and, you know, auto-employed or self-employed, business man, and investor. And it's funny because, oh my God, all the kids understand it.
Yeah.
They understand it. When you give them an example, they understand it big time.
Yep.
Like
because they're also living it. They're living it. Imagine, you know, you come into another city, a country, or whatever, and the parents don't own anything. The parents don't do anything. The parents are not entrepreneurial. And then you expect these kids to become entrepreneurs. They don't have any examples. And even though the kids that you're talking about don't think that by cultivating the land and doing all of this is entrepreneurial, it is. It is, because you're learning from a very young age what it takes to be successful. And successful has all different definitions, but successful is putting food on the table, or, you know, or harvesting, or whatever you're doing. So I think what you're doing, you know, for your babies, for your, you know, your kids, and Wisdom for Kids, I would say it would be an amazing thing if something like that could be done where they don't have the same upbringing. Because I think that even though, you know, the kids that you're talking about may not have a lot, they have a lot more than some of the other kids, you know. So as bad as you think you have it, somebody else has it worse, whatever that saying is. But I know that there's a lot of people, a lot of adults that want to be entrepreneurs, and they have no training in it because their parents were always corporate people, or their parents weren't available, or their parents whatever. And so they have nothing you know, there's no basis for them. And then when they don't succeed, people say, well, you see, I told you you couldn't do it, you know? And I think that's equally as hard. But, you know, people will always say, like, my kids are both entrepreneurs. And they say, oh, you must have gotten it from your mom. Well, that's all they saw. You know, they only saw me doing this and building and failing and building and failing and building and, you know, whatever. But I think that the lessons that we teach these kids are really lessons of courage, lessons of work ethics, lessons of values, lessons of generosity, you know, all of these things that they're learning and hopefully, you know, holding on to. So then they can pass it on to the next group.
And what about the power of failure? You know, what about the power of failure?
Yeah.
Oh my God, how much? I mean, when everything flows and everything is beautiful and it's happy and, you know, it's extraordinary, you know, and everything is fine. But we have kind of we've been maybe stigmatized that, you know, if there's a failure, if something is really wrong, if, you know, if we lost something, if, you know, it's wrong and it's bad. But what about the lessons that teach? And I just can't think, or I can't think about, let's say, this particular woman. Okay, so she's probably suffered a lot in her life, but, you know, she's still there and she's still, you know, making ice cream and selling ice cream, and so she's been teaching her kid resilience and, you know, strength and patience and many other things. And I think that, you know, when you are continuously maybe marginalized would be the right way to say it, you also become strong. You also learn a lot of things, right? So what would you say that, because you've obviously spoken, you've been in a lot of stages, and you've realized what gender really means. What do you think is that kind of muscle that someone builds when they are continuously on the second place? What happens with women that continuously are not in the position that they should be, when they're not treated equally? What's that muscle that they could be developed? And what are those failures that they consistently are being put through just because of gender?
Well, I mean, a lot of times women don't have the opportunity to even develop the muscle because they're not given, they're not even there. They're not there. A lot of times people think that women don't have the intelligence, the training, the background, the being, you know, the behavior, being aggressive. People think that you just don't have that because you're female. When in reality, women have a lot of that stuff. They just don't show it. They just hold it in a lot. But it's not, it's more about being able to admit that you need help. And I think that's what happens with a lot of women. If we're failing at something, and men do this too, they take it personally. They're failing. You know, like they're the failure, and it has nothing to do with you personally. It has to do with the situation. Maybe you weren't prepared yet. Maybe you didn't understand something. Maybe you ran out of money. Maybe you ran out of expertise. Maybe you didn't have trusted advisors around you. But it's not that you failed. You just have to, whatever didn't work, you have to sit there and say, okay, so what did I learn from this? And let's move on. The people that can't move on are the ones that really need this structure within a company to say, okay, today you're going to do this and tomorrow you're going to do this. Entrepreneurs don't have that. We don't have that structure. Yeah, we all have some kind of structure, but we don't have that, you know, the whole itinerary of what our job description is, because as an entrepreneur, you are everything. You're the bookkeeper, you know, your accounts payable, accounts receivable, your marketing, your sales, you're everything. And some things you're good at, some things you're not. But the point is, you have to figure out what you can do and what you can't do. You have to find other people to help you. And a lot of times we don't have the money to hire somebody, so you barter. Or today you can go onto YouTube and say, how do I do this? And there is a video for that. But you were talking about, you know, being marginalized, or, you know, everything is rosy, everything is great, because we look on social media all the time and everybody's doing amazing things. There's nobody that's failing on social media. No one. Everybody is making millions, So you have to decide like who your role models are and who you're going to listen to. I always say, find somebody that's real, find somebody that's authentic, because that's the people you're going to learn from. Because as a woman, we're going to fail more times. We're going to fail more times than not. We just are, because we're in situations that are not always the best for us. But we put ourselves in those situations because we want to grow and because we want to make sure that we have opportunities. So that's how it works.
Exactly. That's how it works. And so at the same time, something else that I realized very, very strongly during this past week is that, the strength, the burden, even the burden of society, it's mostly carried by the women in Latin America. The role of women in family is just outstanding. It's just, even if they become single parents, they are always, most of the festivities, most of the celebrations, they always consider very, very especially women and the role that women and motherhood plays in their society. So I think this is also something that it made me reflect, actually, because obviously I live here, and also I was thinking about when I was growing up in Europe, and what part of that motherhood could be like bluntly, valued and emphasized, corporate strategies related to gender. I had never had this thought, is that, the reality that women biologically and socially, they play a very important role, which is, the values are so important, and those strengths are so unique that, how could we take that into supporting all these gender equality initiatives in corporations today? I don't know if that makes sense at all.
Yeah, it does make sense. I think that one of the things, because you're making a really good point about motherhood and everything. As a mom, there's nothing more important than my children. There's just not. And nobody messes with my children. So what if I had that same passion for what I was doing? Okay, this is my business, and nobody's going to touch my business. I'm going to make sure that my business is successful, not at the expense of my children, but that same kind of, not aggressive, competitiveness, whatever the things that we don't really want to be called. But what if I said that I'm going to build this business, and, I'm going to make sure that my values are attached to this business, and I'm going to make sure that I'm going to build this so it becomes successful. And I have to have different levels of success, because that's what you have with children. You teach them how to walk, you teach them how to talk. So we teach our business how to grow, we teach them how to walk, and, all of those things. And so maybe you can take some of those feelings and attach it to your company. And if you're in corporate America, it's the same thing. Your team are your children. And we all know that a lot of adults are children. And so what if you taught them how to walk before they run, give them the steps that they need to be successful? It's the same thing. You don't have to love on your employees, but you do have to care about them. You have to show them that you are a servant leader, and that you do worry about them, and their success is your success. So, maybe it's something that you can translate. I don't know. It's an interesting point.
Yeah, because we cannot hide that, what is really happening in our lives, So, and yes, it's true. It's really, to think of a bond stronger than, mom, kid. It's very, 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 very difficult. So yes, the passion and the energy that you put onto that, onto defending your, just making sure that everything which happens on the workplace is fair, and your rights are respected, and you're given the same chance. As we always say, we're talking about equality, not to be treated, equal.
Equally, not identical. Yeah.
Exactly. Equally, not identically. Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
so that was one of the things that I saw very, very strongly this past week. And something else, you mentioned work ethic. I will never forget. I think it was the Archbishop of Havana, who was living in Cuba at that time. It was 2004, and 2003, excuse me. And the Archbishop of Havana issued a letter. I think it's called a pastoral letter or something like this. Mm-hmm. And the letter said, "There's no homeland without virtue." There's no homeland without virtue. And he was making that point because homeland, obviously in Cuba, is a very, homeland. It's either or you die. You have to defend your home or you die. Obviously, right. There's a lot of passion about this. But what I was trying to say is that the family as an institution really doesn't exist that much. There's a lot of disintegrated, unstructured families. Absolutely. In specifically in Cuba, everywhere, but specifically in Cuba. And that was the point that he was trying to make. The Archbishop was trying to make the point that, hey, if we really want to have a strong homeland, we have to have a strong family, family-based, family unit and family unit-based society. And that wasn't the case. But again, women are the main foundation of the families in Cuba. And we talk about the completely different, economical system there. It's not, capitalism as here is more, obviously, it's a communist regime. But still, it's the same thing. It's, family is very unstructured. So eventually women have to take care of everything. Provides them with a lot of things, but still, they have to fight. And in that particular case, and entrepreneurship is extremely difficult. Entrepreneurship means being almost illegal. You are almost illegal. They try to legalize it, but it's not that easy.
But if you think about it, Angel, when you go back into corporate America for a minute, the men are offered these positions and they keep these positions because they really don't ever leave. And women are offered these positions, they take the positions, and then a lot of them leave to have families. Okay, so what happens? Is it something that, women are very important in the family structure and they're very important in the workplace, and yet they don't have the same opportunities. There was just a cartoon that somebody posted, and it was 5 or 6, I think it was 6 people running on a track, running. And there were 3 men and there were 3 women. And they're all dressed in business suits. And the men are ready to run and they have a clear vision. The women are ready to run and they're going to have to run through the kitchen and the laundry and everything else. So, right? So, you think about that. So, yeah, women have the brains to be doing this. They have the experience to be doing this, but yet they have all these other obstacles coming their way. No matter how important women are, in some cases, they're not seen as that important because they're it's not like they're indispensable. You have all this stuff in front of you. But I also go back to what you just said about the family unit. There's a lot of countries, ours included, that the family units, even if there are 2 parents in the family unit, everybody's so busy that you don't even have time to have dinner together. You have a soccer game and you have this game, you have a field hockey, you have dance, you have all this stuff, and then there's SAT classes and blah, 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 blah. So maybe you have 12 minutes together. Well, how are you supposed to be able to instill work ethics and instill, generosity and resilience and courage and everything else if you have 12 minutes together? So I think that part of it is that we're just so busy being busy as opposed to let's just stop. I mean, my kids were never allowed to have 12 activities ever because it just didn't make sense to me. How could you do anything well if you're being torn apart into all these different pieces? So there's a lot of stuff around that.
Yes, and obviously there's this part of being judged because you don't do what everybody else does,
mm-hmm. You're judged. Yep.
Yeah, all the time. While you were talking about this, I remember one of the ladies that I also met. I spend more time trying to get to know the reality of the society. And I apologize because there's being a lot of noise today here, but
You're good.
and
You're good.
there were a lot of indigenous old women
Mm-hmm.
that they walk every day several hours just to get to the place where they can meet, even on barefoot. I mean, it was just, and you don't see them again. You go so fast that you don't see them unless you stop. And then in this particular case, this lady on barefoot, she would walk every day more than 90 minutes back and forth from her small community to the main, let's say, city center, city village, 3,000, of population city, to sell their, her things. And her things would be like, small, like keychains, small, like, belts, and, tortilla bags to keep them warm and these kind of things. And she was selling one of the tortilla things for like, maybe I think it was like $5. And she was able to make like 2 a day. But the problem is not how long does it take to her to make them. The problem is how long does it take to her to sell them.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember she would stay there. It was already dark. It was like 7:30 p.m. It was dark, and I was having a sandwich on a kind of coffee shop, and the lady said, "Hey, I haven't sold anything today. I still have all my things here. In this particular holiday, almost nobody came, so there was a lot of competition among different women. So I have to stay here, and I have to actually walk 1 hour and a half back in darkness." And I mean, I didn't see a single man doing that, and I'm not criticizing, obviously, problems or whatever, but is there any male in your family that could help you support you and your family and your home?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, no, he said they are long gone. So she 2 young men as kids that had already left home a long time before, and she didn't even talk about her former husband. So again, what's the burden? What's the burden that even in those indigenous communities, and obviously she was wearing like, her outfit was like the original outfit that had been there for centuries, and she had to but I asked her, originally from what kind of tribe or community. Well, I speak it, but I'm not sure for which community I come from. So, and that made me think again. Okay, so they're losing identity. Mm-hmm. They're losing, So there's so many things that in other areas in the world, so many roles that women are playing, and so many things that unfortunately are happening, and identity, and isn't it funny that what is our identity here, right? You would think, what is our identity here? And we're just talking about not having 10 minutes to have dinner together every night.
Right. I know, and that's what I'm saying. So it's all relative from where you are. There's a community. I want to say it's on an island out, off of Hawaii. I think I'm not 100% sure, but it's run by a woman. A woman is in charge of this island, and the island is for homeless people only. So whether you are married and no longer married, or your spouse died, or whatever it is, but these people have no way of earning a living or living in a home. So this woman created this environment, and you have tents. So I'm thinking it was outside of Hawaii because of the weather. You have tents that you can live in. There's no crime. There's no drugs. There's nothing, because the women that are in charge are still nurturers and still, empowering their kids and showing how you can all work together, where there's no money coming in. And so they grow what they eat and all of this. So again, here's another role that women are playing it's very important, and everything seems to be in order. but it's in order, you know, for here. So, I mean, try bringing that here. That would be like, yikes. But, you know, we all have these roles to play, and you have to decide. It's all about priorities, is my thought. It's all about priorities. If you can say that my priority is, you know, building up, making sure that they're going to be fine and they're going to do better than I'm going to do, that's your role. If your role is corporate America and you're going to do really well in this position and you're going to keep getting promoted, that's your role. But you have to decide, what is your role? What do you want to do? What's your legacy? And legacy doesn't have to be money. It's just, what are you leaving behind? This woman that's still wearing her natural costume, okay? She's bringing down tradition. You know, how many of us are part of a tradition where we don't even know, like, what tribe are you from? You know, so I think there's a lot of things that women bring to the table that they don't realize how important it is. And so that's why we don't, you know, we don't know what our worth is. We don't know what to charge. We don't know what to do, because there's no manual for it. Nobody said, okay, so you are in this tribe, this is who you are, and that's what you do. You sometimes you have to make it up as you go along.
Yes, and I think that for some reason, again, this resilience is a word that comes to my mind right now. I mean, this resilience is something that, you know, we should all, I mean, as male, we should all learn, really. I mean, this resilience comes naturally. You know, this resilience comes naturally, and that's why also, you know, when we talk about, you know, the importance that what are those skills, those virtues, those abilities that women bring to the table that sometimes, you know, men, we don't have. Oh, that's definitely something to admire.
Yeah,
this resilience. I mean, nobody asked this lady to, hey, from now on, you will have to walk on barefoot for 90 minutes each way, every day, to make a living. She was just doing it. It was the thing that she had to do.
Right. And it would be interesting to see how when she was by herself, all by herself, what she did. Because I know for a fact that, you know, for women to be resilient, they have to give themselves permission to sit down and just either start to cry or find a friend or whatever it is, even for a few minutes, because that's how you build resilience. You give yourself permission. Okay, that just really sucked, and I don't even know what I'm supposed to do with this, and I'm going to cry for a little while, and then I'm going to move on. Okay, and so her resilience is, you know, she has to do this in order to make a living, but when she comes back by herself, even if it's for 2 minutes, where she just thinks about, oh my God, this was so hard to do, but I have no option. Even if she just gives herself permission, because who the heck wants to do that every single day? It's the same thing going into an office where you're bullied all the time because you're female and you're pretty, or you're not pretty enough, or you're tall, or you're short, or you're fat, or you're skinny. You know, like, you don't want to do that anymore. So what do? You either figure out a way to make it better, or you leave. That's the same thing she's doing. She has to either figure out a way to make it better, or she leaves. She figured out a way to make it better. This is what she does. This is her living. This is what she does. That's, you know what I'm saying? So it's all these different things that we have to learn, but we have to give ourselves permission to fail, to fall down, to pick ourselves up, and to you know, and to figure out like what our worth is. And it doesn't have to be money. It just means the value you bring. You know?
If you had to, because obviously behind the book and behind the Walking on the Glass Floor book, obviously there's a lot of hours, there's a lot of thinking, there's a lot of reason, there's a lot of heart and intuition, right? You know, talking about those women that are the support still of so many third world country societies that live in those circumstances that really, like, for us, thinking about them, there's just, you know, shaky and we feel for them. If you had to pick only one of the traits of leadership that you talk about in your book, Judy, which one do you think you would kind of tell them that would be the first thing I would ask them?
I probably think that resilience would be at the very top, but I also think generosity would be right behind it. Because when you're able to do something for somebody else, no matter how small it is, you kind of take it off yourself, and you don't realize, like, how much you're doing or how hard it is or anything else. So I think that resilience is big, but I think generosity kind of overshadows it a bit. What would you say?
Generosity, I would say, is the most unknown and used of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think misunderstand or underestimates the power of gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
big time,
Mm-hmm.
and the power of doing things for others,
Mm-hmm.
and what it represents, and what it represents from a perspective even of, you know, just energy flowing among us. So generosity is very powerful. I don't know, maybe I would go back to courage again.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's already built in. You know, it can be that it's already built in, but generosity. Can you imagine a world? But again, are we not taught since we are kids to be fighting against each other? Like, it's a competitive world, you know. So you better, you know, you better get up, or otherwise, you know, nobody's gonna pick you up, or, you know, watch the rest of the world. They're gonna fight against you.
That's boys when you're little.
Mm.
Girls, no. Girls are more collaborate and make nicey nice and play dolls and communicate. And boys are like, rock 'em, sock 'em, you know, let's do this. It changes as you get older, but when you're little, I mean, that's really where you first start to feel it. Like, you know, girls are much more generous and, you know, boys are not. But it changes.
Yeah, it changes.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Hey, Judy, what do you think? I think that we've reached the end of the conversation already.
I think so.
As usual, it's been a different conversation today, but I think that we've touched on things that we typically don't have the time to do it.
Yeah.
With the amazing guests that we bring to the table.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for being with us again today. Where can we find you? Tell me.
You can find me on sellinginnaskirt.com, walkingontheglassfloor.com, and any place on social media on either Selling in a Skirt or Judy Hoberman, anywhere. Exactly. And you, my friend?
It's starting at 5 a.m. Central Time.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Every single day. Oh my God, Judy is definitely a woman of habit and routines. My God, of discipline.
Yeah,
consistency,
really.
And discipline. I like discipline. I like discipline. People can find me here at Mindalia every day. They can, you know, send me an email at angel@angelribo.com, or they can go to wisdomforkids.today, and then they can contribute to our cause either with a donation or with becoming volunteers. So again, great conversation. Thank you very much, Judy, for being with us today.
Yay.
And again, you know, thank you to all the audience. This is Angel Ribo with Mindalia TV. Thank you, everybody, for being with us today. I'm sure that you have enjoyed the conversation as much as we have, and we hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye.